Hi, I'm Donna Blanchard. Welcome to ThinkTech, where we are bringing to you information about diversity, energy, technology, and globalism. This show is Center Stage, and we are coming to you from Pioneer Plaza in the heart of downtown Honolulu, very near Kumukuhua Theater, where I am also the proud managing director. I'll give you a little information up front. We stream our shows from 1 to 5 every weekday afternoon on ustream.tv and Spreaker.com. You can find all of our shows archived on YouTube, and you can look up all of our shows if you go to ThinkTechHawaii.com. Today I am very excited to bring you the author, Graham Salisbury. And I want to read, for his intro, I'd like to read just a little piece I found on his website that he doesn't know yet. I'm going to read. Graham Salisbury comes from a 100-year line of newspapermen, all associated with Hawaii's morning paper, the Honolulu Advertiser, now the Honolulu Star Advertiser. Although a career as a newsman could have been possible, Salisbury chose to imagine rather than to report. I'm very happy to bring you Graham Salisbury.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Primarily, we have you here today to talk about your book, Under the Blood Red Sun, and what has happened to it over the last 20 years.
Yep. It's got long legs.
It's got long legs. I just went to the premiere of it the premiere of the film this past Friday.
Mm.
I can't even imagine what that is like for you to have written a book 20 years ago that is it's reading material in a lot of middle schools on the island as well as the West Coast, yeah?
All over the nation.
All over the nation?
Oh, yeah. All over.
That's yours.
Yeah. I know. It's pretty incredible to think back on that.
Yeah. And then someone grabbed it and said, we want to make this film, Dana and Tim.
Yeah. Well, it's 20 years old, the book. So I've been working with Dana and Tim for at least 12 years. Dana approached me approximately 12 years ago, it was a long time ago, to make this into a movie, and we've been trying to do it ever since. We've got the passion, we've got the story, we've got the script, she's got the people. The hump always is money. So finding the funding for it was difficult, and we brought it to a certain point early on and then could not get the money. This time, Dana said, you know what, I'm just going to do this. We're going to go out there and we're going to plow ahead and we're going to trust that the money will come. And we did a little Kickstarter campaign and raised funds that way. Lots of people helped us around town, and people I know, businesses. We just asked people, and people stepped up to the plate and helped us out, and so we just forged ahead and made the movie. Plus, the extremely talented people that made it, the cast and the crew, all worked on a sacrificial basis. They didn't take their normal, what they could get. They took lesser to be a part of this story, because it is a Hawaii story, and our entire cast and crew, writers, producer, everybody except Chris Tashima is from Hawaii. Totally local production, so it's very special that way.
It's very special in so many ways.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the story itself. Can you give us a brief synopsis of the story?
Yes, it's about two boys, a Japanese boy and his best friend, who's a haole transplant from California, living in Nu'uanu. The Japanese boy's mother works for a haole family, and they live on their property in a side house on the larger estate. And they become friends, and the owners of the house, of the people who employ the Japanese mother, their son, it becomes the antagonist in the story. And he and the Japanese boy were friends until somebody told the haole boy that it wasn't cool to be seen in Japanese. And he said, oh, okay. So then he turned, and he became quite mean, partially because of that, but mostly because of his relationship with his father. His father was quite overbearing. And so they had this thing going on, and then bombing of Pearl Harbor happened, and things went from bad to worse. And we see who stands up and who does not stand up, and that's what the story is all about. You know, how deep is your friendship? How deep is your loyalty to your family? How deep is your loyalty to your country? How much does American culture clash with Japanese culture, and how does this boy work all of this out? And especially when his father says to the Japanese boy, he says, you know, don't fight, don't get in trouble, don't bring shame to our name. And so this boy's got to hold back all this time. He's being browbeaten by this other guy, and he manages it really well. And then he reaches a point at the end where it's time to step up and do what he feels is right. You know, this is the clash between the Japan culture, Hawaii culture. You know, it's just, am I going to...
An individual.
Yeah, he says, this, I have to do this for me, for my own self-esteem. I have to do this for my integrity. And he does it quite well, I think. So that's what it's all about.
You wrote a beautiful story with so many really amazing, in-depth characters that I'm not surprised that someone read this and said, we absolutely have to make a film out of this. I mean, as an actor and a director, I read it and thought, oh man, there's some good characters in here. Yeah. So in a moment we'll go back. I'd like to go back and talk about where your inspiration came from for this, but we'll stay closer to the present just for now. You were asked then to write the screenplay.
I was.
Had you written a screenplay before?
Well, no. Dana said, well, why don't you give it a shot? And I said, I've never written a screenplay. She said, well, just try. So I did. I got a program called Final Draft, which really, it structured the whole thing in a screenplay kind of way. It made it quite easy. So I could tell the story using Final Draft as a structuring tool. So with the help of Final Draft, and I think that my strong point as a writer is dialogue. So writing the screenplay was quite enjoyable. And I really had a blast doing it. I wrote it in a Starbucks in Portland, Oregon, where I live now. And so I gave Dana the screenplay. It was a bit long, so we massaged it, worked back and forth, and then she asked me to make it a little more cinematic by writing a new opening and a new ending, which I did. And I really like what I came up with for the opening and the ending. Filmed a little bit differently than I had written it, but that really worked for me. It gave it a bookending type of a thing, and it gave the story more closure than the book, because the book is part of a series. You know, at the time the story ends, the boy doesn't really know what happens to his father who's taken away and his grandfather who's taken away. He doesn't know. That's why it's an open-ended story. But as the books in the series progress, it'll all come together in the end. But the movie can't be that way. It has to have more closure. So I wrote an ending that gave it that closure, and I wish it was in the book. Actually, I liked the ending. It touched me personally.
Yeah. Maybe this is a good time. Let's talk a little bit about Dana, because it was kind of a lucky happenstance that she is here. Isn't she, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't her husband military, and that's what brought her to the island? It seems to me I heard this.
Yeah, well, she and her husband have been in the islands for quite some time. At the time I first met them, her husband Lee was a nuclear submarine captain, and they lived on Ford Island in one of those old houses, beautiful old military houses. It's just a great spot. And then he became, I believe, he worked for the admiral as, I'm not sure what capacity, but and then he retired. And when he retired, they moved, and this is only 3 years ago perhaps, they retired and they moved to the Northwest. They moved to Portland. Now she lives 10 minutes away from me.
Oh. Really?
So before
But she had gotten the ball rolling here.
Yeah, and whenever I came to town, and I usually come to Hawaii about 4 or 5 times a year. I've been doing that forever. We'd always meet and talk about the project and keep it going, and so that's kind of how it worked.
Okay. So she happened to come to the table with experience in
Yes.
how you produce a movie.
Right. Yeah, she's got deep experience as a line producer and producer on her own. She does commercials. She does Bank of Hawaii commercials, and she's been doing that for a long time. So she's got very good skills in movie making, as does Tim. But what Dana's strong point is that she can keep 1,000 details in her head,
yes,
without having it explode. So, I mean, she's quite amazing. So I'm kind of looking forward to the time where she can just relax. I said, please go on a vacation after this is over, because she's been working night and day on this, and she just has everything in her head.
It's an amazing team that came together.
Absolutely.
To make this happen.
Absolutely.
So let's now say you just had the official premieres have been happening last weekend,
Mm-hmm.
and what is coming up now this weekend?
Well, this weekend on Friday night, we have a sort of private showing for other members of the cast and crew and their families to come, and we'll have book signing, author panel, and then a screening, and then more book signing. That'll happen, I don't know, around 6 o'clock or something. This coming Friday at Pearl Harbor. That's not a public event. That's an invitation event. The next day, we'll go back to the Pearl Harbor National Park Visitor Center, and we'll have an evening in the park. They're going to show an outdoor movie. I think it's called A Movie in the Park, where it's open to the general public. It's free. They'll come and bring their lawn chairs and their coolers and, just Hawaii style, sit in the grass and watch a movie, have a good time.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, and then on Sunday we'll have at the Honolulu Museum of Art at the Doris Duke Theater, we will have another ticketed screening. Sold out, so there's no possibility of getting tickets unless somebody gives you one. So, and that's pretty much the end of the line. So we've had, almost 10 days glorious fun here in the islands, showing our movie, and it's just been so good. The islands have been extremely kind and welcoming to this project and to all of us.
Yeah.
Extremely grateful for that.
Well,
Affect families living in Honolulu. What did they do? You don't see a lot of that. And so I think that's what gives it its uniqueness. And for me, this project sort of launched me into a real strong desire to know more about Hawaii Japanese-American experience in World War II. And in my subsequent books, I still follow the Japanese-American point of view because it's so powerful. Those stories are so, and they're not been told, and they need to be told.
Absolutely.
So to me, it's like I've just found myself a gold mine of story, and I'm just in there looking for stuff. Wow, look at this, bring it out, and I'm going to make a story around this. It's kind of how I view it.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
That's a really nice segue too. We're going to take a little break here, and when we come back, then I would like to talk about your background and how you started being this creator of stories.
Excellent.
Yeah? Okay, we're going to take a little break. We'll be right back. This is Center Stage on the ThinkTech Hawaii Digital Series. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Jay Fidel. That's Ted Ralston. Ted is the host of Where the Road Leads. It shows every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. It's about technology. It's about how people collaborating and solve problems with modern technology. It's where the road leads. We all know that. We should all be listening. Join us there, 4 to 5 p.m. every Friday. Now, what about that do you agree with?
All of it.
I knew he'd say that. Aloha. Say aloha.
Aloha.
Good.
Hi, we're back. This is Center Stage on the ThinkTech Hawaii digital series. I'm Donna Blanchard, proud managing director of Kumukuhu Theater, and we are coming to you live from Pioneer Plaza in the heart of downtown Honolulu, very near Kumukuhu Theater. I'm talking with Graham Salisbury, author of Under the Blood Red Sun, among many other novels. And Under the Blood Red Sun is now a film that you can go to Pearl Harbor Recreation Center, Recreation Park, on Saturday evening and watch. What time is that?
Well, I think it starts at 6 o'clock with book signing at the Pearl Harbor National Park Visitor Center, where everybody goes. And it's a movie in the park type thing where you bring your lawn chairs and it's free to the public, and it's just here we are, Hawaii. Come take a look.
Yeah, that sounds so cool. And you can find that info on underthebloodredsun.com, I imagine.
Yes,
Yeah.
And you can also find the movie on underthebloodredsun.com. There's a place where you can buy it and
download
watch
the
it.
film.
You buy it once and you watch it as many times as you want.
Nice.
So, yeah, it's right there on the site, underthebloodredsun.com.
Did I hear on Friday night that you're also going to be on demand on Oceanic? No, I didn't hear that. Someone made it up.
Yeah.
Just go to the website.
We'll do it, whatever it is.
I know. Okay. Okay, so you come from a long line of news writers.
Yes, my uncle, Thurston Twigsmith, was the
What
publisher.
a name.
Yeah,
Thurston Twigsmith.
Yeah.
Okay, you should use that name.
Well, my family has deep roots here. We've been here since 1820. So, and I think toward the end of that century, in 1890s, my great-great-grandfather began the Pacific Commercial Advertiser, I believe is what it's called, and it just went down the line to become the morning paper, the Honolulu Advertiser. Then it merged the Star Bulletin, and then at some point we sold to Gannett. And because my uncle, he's one of these guys that everything he touched turned to gold. He was brilliant. He's still with us. He's still brilliant. But so that was his baby. I worked for the paper one summer as a copy boy. Yeah, it's not my cup of tea. I like to create. A lot of artists in my family. Lots of art.
Yeah.
My grandfather was William Twigsmith, who was a really fine painter in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. His work is in the Museum of Art. He's an outstanding artist.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Okay. And what other any other types of artists?
Yes. Well, my cousin Ibby, she's about my age. She makes these puzzles for whatever picture you want. She makes them out of wood. She has a little jigsaw, and just amazing.
Oh.
As many pieces as you want, and she can do anything. She's such a good artist. This is just one of her talents.
So there's a lot of respect and support for artistic endeavor in your family.
Art is big.
Yeah.
Yes, art is big.
Fabulous. And at what age did you feel some sort of relationship to fiction?
I sort of stumbled into the writing part. When I was young, I wanted to be a rock and roll star. That's what I wanted to do. I fell in love with, the Beatles and all that kind of, the Beach Boys, especially the Beach Boys. And that's what I wanted to do. And I did that for a while. I did it in L.A. For about 9 years. And then I went back to college. I just kind of stumbled into writing because I developed this huge fear of public speaking. And that was because of public speaking course in college that I embarrassed myself in.
Oh my, what did you do? Oh, you must tell us now. You're doing very well.
The assignment that way, I went from Hawaii to the most logical college, which is the University of Vermont.
Oh, yeah.
Crazy.
Of course.
Go figure. But anyway, I went to the University of Vermont, and first semester there, one of the courses we had to take was public speaking. And the professor assigned this assignment. He said, you know, if you want somebody to listen to you, you have to grab their attention, their interest. And so go back to your dorms and write a 2-minute opening that grabs my interest. That's your assignment. And so this is, you know, it was in the middle of the winter. It's like 20 below outside and 80 degrees inside these old buildings that are heated with radiators. You know, you're just half asleep in there. So I came back, class of about 35 people, all half asleep in this class. It was rather boring because the professor didn't really make it as exciting as he could have. So when my turn came up, I come up with this gimmick. You know, my opening was going to be something about surfing a big wave. And so I came up with this gimmick where I turned my back to the audience, and then I flipped around and I screamed something about a big wave coming in. I swear I had 5 heart attacks in the front row. I scared them so much. Professor got up and he said, "Wait, stop. That's not what I had in mind." And I couldn't go back to that class for 3 weeks. And then when I did it, I just slid into the back. Developed this fear of public speaking that was just overwhelming, and it went on for years. And so finally, I decided I'm going to overcome this fear. So I signed up for a Dale Carnegie public speaking class. They had us write 2-minute talks. But now it was in a class of 40 people who had the same fear. So I started giving these little talks, and somebody would laugh. And I'd tell stories about Hawaii, and I get another chuckle. I said, "This is pretty fun. Good boy, you're doing a good job." So then I go back and I come up with these lies. And I tell tall tales about Hawaii. And I get all this uproarious laughter. And it really made me feel good. I overcame my fear of public speaking. And I decided that, boy, this is fun, making things up. Is that crazy or what?
It's a natural step to write it down. That is. So lying is what took...
Lying. I'm doing that every day. I still do it. So that's kind of how I got into this. And the deeper I got into it, you know, this is where I need to be. This is what, you know, I was born to do. And I love it. It's outstanding.
Now, how old were you when you first wrote a story?
I was about 45. So it's never too late.
Oh, yeah.
Never too
you
late.
took your time getting there. Well, you were a rock star
I was
for a
in rock and roll and various other endeavors. And I really wanted to do rock and roll. Then when I went back to college, I wanted to be an elementary high school principal. I mean, elementary principal, not high school. Elementary principal.
Oh.
I graduated from California State University, taught for a year at a Montessori school. Then that school went out of business. So then I went on to do other things. Then I went to get a master's degree in writing. I graduated from Vermont College of Fine Arts with a master's degree in writing. And so I honed my skills then. And I mean, I have all kinds of stories about how to write and how to do it and all that kind of stuff. Mostly because I did it all on my own. I really taught myself how to write. My first book took me 5 years to write because I was teaching myself all along the way how to do it. And I think if you have a passion for any art or anything that you want to create, if you really have a passion for it, you're going to do it. You're going to do what it takes to get there. If it takes 5 years, it takes 5 years. Because really it's the process that is the fun. At the end, you got a book. So you got a book. But it's what you went through to get there. You know, that's part of your growth. That's what you learn all this great stuff. You meet people. It's just the glory of creation.
You are singing my tune. That's what it is all about. It's the road that you travel.
Right. It's the process. Exactly.
So you slipped another piece of the puzzle in there when you said you wanted to be an elementary school principal. You obviously love kids.
I do, and I don't know where that comes from, but kids, especially around grades 4, 5, and 6, those are my people.
Oh, they scare me. Those are the exact ones that intimidate me.
Oh, I love those guys. I mean, just come on, guys, come around, gather. I don't know what it is, but I just love kids.
There's so much growth going on for them.
Right, and they're still at this stage where they're just innocent, and you know, when they get about 6th grade, and then they start to turn a bit. I think the middle schools, that's tough.
Yeah.
But I go to a lot of middle schools because the Blood Red Sun it's kind of crosses the line between elementary and middle school. Most of my other books are middle school books. I have a whole series called Calvin Coconut for the younger guys, which I created so I could get into the elementary school. And I did it for that reason.
Really?
Yeah, I created that series.
There's a lot of those. How many, Calvin?
9.
Oh, 9.
Yeah, and my editor said, please go back to the war books. So, consequently, I have a brand new one that just came out last week.
What's that called?
It's called Hunt for the Bamboo Rat. It's the 4th in the series that was started by Under the Blood Red Sun.
Oh, okay.
So I have Under the Blood Red Sun. Its sequel is called House of the Red Fish. I have one called Eyes of the Emperor and Hunt for the Bamboo Rat, and there will be maybe 1 or 2 more in the future.
There's room. There's room for more.
Yeah, I'm still kicking. I'm still right.
You might. That's a good thing to hear. I'm going to read a little something that I found out about you while I was stalking you for the show. So it's okay. We are what we choose to be. Fortunate kids learn this truth early on from a parent, a mentor, a committed teacher, a friend. But not all are so fortunate as to have such guides. This is where stories can make a real difference. Vicarious exploration can offer opportunities to learn good things. What is character? What is friendship? What are values? What is courage? What is generosity? What is work ethic? These themes and more play out in my books. We are who we choose to be. We and we alone are the master of our ship.
Absolutely.
That comes through in your work, and what a gift it is that it comes through in an entertaining way.
And I think that's the best way. Stories do it. Stories. A young person, an adult, can see this is how it's done. This is what it looks like. This is what integrity looks like. This is what honor, courage, and hard work looks like. And they see it without somebody, beating it into them. It's a story, and if it's a really good story, you have that wonderful vicarious experience. That's why we read stories, why we go to the movies, why we go to plays, why we read books, so we can have that vicarious experience. During that time, you are the character. You're along for the ride, and that's the wonderful thing about story. It gives me chills just talking about it.
Yeah, well, that's one of the problems with illiteracy is that I grew up reading. I grew up in a family that loved books, and it was only natural for me to be a very hungry reader. And I didn't realize that I was learning how to process. I was learning how to solve problems.
Exactly.
I was learning good from bad. My definition of good and bad and right and wrong. Those were all. The books helped me to form those as much as going to school and going to church and being with my family did.
Right. Sure. Yeah. It's all part of the process.
Are you familiar with Kay Aloha, the Hawaii Poet Laureate?
I'm not sure. No.
That's cool if you hadn't. I mean,
Yeah.
I interviewed him a few weeks ago, and he is an MIT graduate in molecular biology, something like that.
Oh, wow.
And he wanted, you wouldn't expect that. It was important to him to help relay the messages of science. And he found his conduit of entertainment to bring that out. You found a more conventional way to do it, but I think that it's so very rare that it is done with such. There's a warmth to your work, to your characters, but there's also a tenderness about them that it makes me think that you must be a very thoughtful person.
Well, I'm all for kids that have nothing. That's part of being a writer. Okay, write a book. You do your best for the story. It goes out there. It becomes what it is. But on the other hand, there's a whole other part about being a writer that is even better. And that is that I get to go into schools. I get to talk to kids. I'll present to maybe 500 kids at a time, or a small group or whatever. And I'm going to tell you about one time I seek out these kids that have nothing. So there's this one school in Oregon that I went to, and before I was to do my presentation to the entire school, who had read one of my Calvin Coconut books, elementary school, they had a Calvin Coconut Day, and they invited me. So before the big presentation, I went to the school counselor, and I said, can you give me the name of maybe 10 kids who are really struggling, who maybe have no fathers, or their fathers are in prison, or they have no parents at all, and just have nothing? I would like to meet these 10 kids. And so we devised a way, because they were having contests all around this Calvin Coconut Day, we devised a way for each of those 10 kids to have won a book from the author. I had brought them with me. So after the presentation, we went around to the rooms, and I presented the book to the winners. I mean, these are kids who would never have money to buy a book, whose parents had the money, they would never spend it on a book. And so I went to this one fourth grade class, and there's this was for a girl named Melissa, a fourth grader. She had no parents. She lived with her aunt and another woman. She just, she had nothing except those two women. And she was sort of neglected. So I went to this class, and they were just kind of working away independently in the classroom. The teacher says, "Oh, Alyssa, the author's here to give you a book. You won something." And this, way back in the corner, was this beautiful child sitting there alone, working by herself. She looked up as if she couldn't believe they had called her name. Me? Yes, come forward and get your book. So she comes walking up very haltingly, because she still can't believe it. And so I gave her this book, and I said, "Look, I signed this book to you. I'd like you to have this." And she took the book and looked at it. And she looked up at me, and she looked back at that book, and she gave me this big hug. Oh. And when I squeezed her, she had this down jacket on. You could just smell the poverty coming off that coat. And she took the book and walked away. She walked halfway back to her desk. She turned around and looked at me again, and she came back, and she gave me another hug. I said, "Darn, it broke my heart." That is the most glorious thing about being a writer, to have that one-on-one contact with somebody on that just blissful human level. So that's my payoff.
That is a beautiful story. We're going to go to a quick break. Everyone get your hankies. We'll be right back. This is Center Stage on the ThinkTech Hawaii Digital Series. Stay put.
I'm Jay Fidel. That's Sharon Moriwaki of the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum. And every Wednesday we have Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy. We've been doing it for some time now, and we have some fantastic guests on there, unbelievable guests who give us insight into what is going on in a very complex, sometimes very confusing, sometimes very disappointing area of progress in the state. So we love doing this. We love meeting them. We love talking to them. We love having their ideas out on the table. So maybe, just maybe, we can all make some sense of what's going on. Sharon, what do you think?
I think it's absolutely correct. We enjoy ourselves meeting with all these people and hearing about the energy and the state of clean energy, and hopefully we advance clean energy for the state. So it's terrific. Join us.
Okay, it's every Wednesday. Okay, Wednesday is Energy Day. Every Wednesday, 4 to 5 p.m. Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy, here on ThinkTech Hawaii. We'll see you there.
Hi, we're back and we're live. This is Center Stage on the ThinkTech Hawaii Digital Series, coming to you from Pioneer Plaza in the heart of downtown Honolulu, very near Kumukuhui Theater. I'm Donna Blanchard, proud managing director of Kumukuhui Theater, and I'm talking with Graham Salisbury, author of Under the Blood Red Sun and the Calvin Coconut series. And let's go back. The first book that you decided to write, that took you 5 years to put together because you were sort of inventing your own, you were an outsider writer. What was that book?
It's Blue Skin of the Sea. Blue Skin of the Sea.
Ah, okay, I have not read that.
Yeah, that was, I wrote that because I wanted to remember in sort of a word picture, a word painting, the Kailua Kona on the Big Island that I grew up in, because I could see it changing. I could see development coming in, tourism expanding, stoplights, and everything coming into this beautiful, pristine little fishing village that I experienced as a young person. And I wanted to preserve that in stories. So this is what I did.
Oh, so is it a group of stories, or is it?
There are 11 stories that are all, it reads like a novel because I've held them together with a thread that runs through them.
Oh.
And it's resolved at the end. It's totally a coming-of-age book. So it's, for me, always going to be my favorite of what I've done, because I put a lot of myself into that book.
Oh, okay. And then what did you do with that when you finished it?
Well, this is my story of how to get published.
That's what we're hoping for. How did you do it?
So I started this project, and I got some of these stories published in local Chaminade Review, Hawaii Pacific Review, even Manoa University of Hawaii published my stories, and that was really encouraging to me. So then when I went to Vermont College of Fine Arts to get my master's degree, one of the graduation requirements is that you have a manuscript, you have a book. And so the book that I ended up with was Blue Skin of the Sea. And so, great, I have a book, now what? So one of the other things we had to do was give a reading. So I gave a reading, one of the stories, and in the audience who had come up from New York, or actually not, yeah, I think it was New York, was an editor for Atlantic magazine, C. Michael Curtis. And he came up to me after and said, that's really a nice story. Can I show your work to a friend of mine at Little Brown in Boston? I said, sure, go ahead. Well, Little Brown didn't do anything with it. However, I went to a SCBWI, that's Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, one of their conferences in the woods of Oregon. It was just a 3-day conference, and I was sitting there at a picnic table, and across from me was this woman. She asked me what I did, and I said, oh, I wrote this stuff about Hawaii. She said, oh, can I take a look at it? By the way, I'm an editor at Bantam Doubleday Dell.
Ooh.
I go, oh, yeah, sure, go ahead. So she took it, and 2 weeks later, she called me up and said, we'd like to make you an offer. And I've been with her ever since. She's been my editor ever since.
Oh, wow.
And we sort of grew up together because when she took my manuscript, she was sort of part-time editor at Random House. And now she has her own imprint, Wendy Lamb Books, a division of Penguin Random House. And so, and she's a huge star in the publishing world. And we've been friends, and we've worked together for all that time. And it's been brilliant. But I tell people if they want to get published, first thing you have to do is have something that's good. You got to do the work. Then, instead of sending it in to a publisher and having to go to the slush pile and get lost, to go to conferences. You know, I want to write for kids. I go to a Kid Writers Conference. If you want to write mysteries, you go to the Mystery Writers of America Conference. And you go to your people. At these conferences, there are opportunities for writers to, for maybe $20 or $30, submit 3 to 5 pages to an editor or a writer or an agent, and they will read them and critique them, and you could sit down one-to-one and talk about your stuff. So that, number one, is really good. But the best thing about it is now you know somebody. And so when you're ready to send your manuscript, dear Mr. So-and-so, I met you at, and we talked about, and here's my, so it goes right to the person instead of the slush pile. So that's, you got to get past that slush pile.
Okay.
And I think today it's really even more difficult to get to an editor, which is why writers have to spend so much time getting to to agents. And you do that the same way. You go to these conferences because agents come looking for people. You know, they need people like you need them. So you go to find each other, and then they go to work for you. So you just got to get that. You got to talk to people, get face to face. Don't be afraid. You know, just go out there, fail your way up.
Get that relationship. It's all about relationships.
It is.
Yeah. Okay, so then when it came to your next book, did she say, why don't you write a book about blah? Or did you say, I've got an idea for a book about
Well,
blah?
no, she did not steer it. And I didn't know I was going to be a Hawaii-centric writer. You know, everything I've written has been set in Hawaii, except for my next project, which we can talk about if you want to.
Yes.
So I said, this is the biggest part about being a writer. You've got a book that goes out there, does fairly well, is successful, which Blue Skin of the Sea was. But everybody wants to know, that's great. Can you do it again? You know, that's the thing. Can you do it more than once? So it's more pressure to produce the second novel, which just happened to be Under the Blood Red Sun, which just happened to be my biggest book. But I said, well, gee, what do I know about Hawaii that's really interesting? What going up, what was big for me? And hearing stories about Pearl Harbor was huge. So I asked the question, what must it have been like to have been in Honolulu on the day Pearl Harbor was bombed? It all started with that question. And when I think back now, I look at the movie and all the people that are going to see this movie and all the people that went into making this movie and all the people that read the book, more than 3 million, and all the people that went into making that book and all the words that went into the book and all the help that I had along the way all go back to that one question.
what must it have been like?
So I like to tell people, never underestimate the power of an intention. You put your idea out there, and you're passionate about it, and you work it. No, don't think about failure. You just do it. Just do it.
Because it's the doing, that's where the growth, that's where the life is happening,
right,
in the doing.
And when you do something, you meet people, and you get, oh, that's a good idea, and you go here and you meet people, oh, that, and I call it magic. I think you just put your fingers down and magic happens. That's art.
That's art.
Yeah.
I like that. That makes me want to put my fingers down. It makes magic happen.
Let's get to work.
Let's do it. So you have, you continue that relationship. You continue writing. Do you have other artistic endeavors in your life? Do you have any other outlets?
Yes, I love to play the guitar.
Oh, yeah.
I've been doing that for a long time. I'm not great, but I cannot pass a guitar without touching it. It's just one of those things. I love guitars. I love music. Music is very powerful. Artistically, I also have done oil pastels.
Oh.
I just got the creative gene from my grandfather.
Yeah.
You know.
I think that, I know a lot of artists, and including myself, who we express ourselves in several different ways, and we just sort of can't help it. And I really wonder about that. What is it that are we expressing our humanity, or is this our way of communing? Is this our way of just getting something out, or are we actually trying to reach something with it? I don't know the answer.
Yeah, I think for me, it's this innate, ineffable desire to keep growing, to keep learning. And when you create, you just learn when you create. I mean, I cannot even imagine stopping learning. The word retirement does not exist in my language.
I know. Artists don't retire, we fade.
Yeah, we go as far as we can, and then we go, okay, it's fine, it's time to go on to the next thing, whatever it is. So we check out happily, because we die empty. We don't die with a full tank.
Right.
So
right.
I just think it's this desire to grow, to keep learning. And every time we create something, we learn something. That's my assessment.
That's the way it should be. So we've got just a few more minutes left here. Let's talk about your next project. Now you've piqued my interest.
Well, my editor and I talked about what we would do next, and my thought was I was going to do another war book, because I have a lot of ideas for that. But then she said, give me a minute, or a couple days. So she went to speak to the people at Scholastic, and the Scholastic people and my editor sat down and said, what should Graham Salisbury do next? And because I had some other ideas too that but they decided I should do something totally out of the box for me, just something to surprise people. So I said, great, I'm going to write something. Heretofore, I've written about what I know. My next book will be about what I want to know, not what I do know. So I'm going to have a lot of work, a lot of research, and I've already got all the connections because I put it out there. But I'm going to write a book set in Oregon, and it's going to be all around Western values, Western cultures, a boy and his father, and other things going on, the BLM and wild horses and rodeo and all that kind of stuff that I just love. I love the West, the American West, and I love rodeo and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be something Western. It's going to be set in a town called Prineville, Oregon, which is pretty much right in the center of Oregon. And I'm very excited about it.
That sounds wonderful.
I have no idea where it's going to go, but I'm headed there.
That's fabulous. Now, when you sit down to write, do you give yourself, it's 7 a.m., I'm going to sit down and write for an hour or 2 or 3, or do you just let it, I'm going to sit down because I feel it now?
No. If I did that, I'd never do it. I have to treat it like a job. I get up at 5 o'clock. By 6 or 7, I'm at it. I'll work till maybe 10. 6 to 10 is really that's when I'm best, morning. Some people are nighttime people, but you have to know where your best work comes from. I'm a morning person. So I will work during that time slot 5 days a week consistently. Sometimes it's really hard. The main thing you have to do is remember, do not check your email. Stay out of your email. That's just a repository of other people's agendas, not your agenda. So stay out of your email till after your best work is done. So that's my work time. And first drafts are extremely difficult. It's like pulling teeth. But revision, I could revise all day and all night. I just love revising. So that's the fun part of writing.
Wow, that's interesting. And I got to wrap up here, but I find that really interesting. I could do a first draft all day long, but revisions, ugh, so
But
hard
that's when you
for me.
make it
It's
better. You're just
interesting.
making it better and better and better.
I don't. Well, that's why I haven't sold 3 million books. Maybe. It's been such an honor and a pleasure talking with you. I'm so glad that you came in, and I'm so very happy for your success and the success of the film, and I hope that everyone gets an opportunity to, if you can't go to to see it in the park this weekend, then just go to the website and download it there and watch it with your family.
There you go.
So I have to say a few things here. I would like to thank our production manager, Zuri Bender, who is not in my ear at the moment because we had a problem with the earpiece. I would like to thank our stage manager, Ali Yamashita. Thank you very much. Our communications director, Chrissy Goffigan, and Jay Fidel, who somehow manages to put it all together. Please join us here next week. I will have Jane Campbell, who has been a maven of theater on this island for the last 50 years, and you won't believe some of the stories she will tell. If you'd like to check out any of our shows, go to thinktechhawaii.com or YouTube. See you next week. Thank you.